How's it going, everyone? Today we're working in the garage again, and we got the Miata. It fits better than the Nova does. I think when I pulled the Nova in here this far, it stuck outside the door. Today we're going to be doing some work with the parts that I picked up in the last video. I've got my inner and outer shifter boots here from Goodwin, and I think the parts themselves actually came from Moss Miata. I know this one obviously came from Moss, and I believe this one does as well. And first things first, I'm actually going to open the top to give myself a little bit more room. That's a little better. Anytime you're working on a car, you should always do whatever you can in order to make sure things go as smoothly as possible. Any little thing you can do to give yourself a bit more room or to make things go a little bit smoother is always good. So we're going to be replacing the leather shift boot that's right here on the top, as well as the rubber shift boot that's underneath the console. And to start, we're going to take the console out, and there's a few screws inside the actual storage compartment. Those are pretty nasty in there. And there are two clips on the side, which I think these are actually covers for two more screws. And I don't believe there's one in here, but I will check that. And then not all Miatas have power windows, of course. Mine does, though. And there is going to be one electrical connector for that that you will have to unplug before you actually take the console off. So let's go ahead and get started. And like I said just a bit ago, I was wondering if there might have been a screw under here, and I was right. The ashtray should just pop right out, and there is one more screw down there, and that'll just come right out. Right, so now all my screws are out. I'm going to make sure that the shift knob comes off of the shifter, and right here in the front it's going to pop up just like that. And then you're going to make sure that the gas cap and trunk release levers slip right through. You might have to just move it just a little bit through to make sure it goes through. And with that, your whole console is now out. Now, like I mentioned before, there is one little connector under here for the window switches. And just give that a squeeze and disconnect it, and it should all come right out. Alright, so now you want to find a safe place for your console, somewhere you're not going to step on it or anything. Now, this is the rubber boot, and there's going to be 4 bolts here. And usually you can't see this part here with those bolts. Usually this is all covered by the boot, but as you can see, it's just falling apart here. And with a car that's 18 years old, that just kind of comes with the territory. Here we go. Now, the shifter itself, everything feels excellent. You know, the car shifts great, but having this boot torn like it is, it really does let a lot of noise and a little bit of heat, but a lot of noise. Every movement of the shifter, it sounds like you're underneath the car almost sometimes. So in terms of drivability and comfort, this is kind of a big thing that I wanted to get done. And also, you know, kind of clean up a little bit here. I'll probably get the vacuum in here and you know, clean some things out here. But let's get going with taking the boot out now. Now, these are 10mm metric bolts, and these aren't too tight, and they don't have to be, they just have to hold the rubber down. We got all our bolts here. We put those in the console as well, and we're going to take off the boot here. Now, This is going to need probably a little bit of coaxing. It's never been off the car. And just kind of push under there with a flathead screwdriver, and a little bit sticky, but it all comes off. And that is a beauty right there. Alright, so that's on there nice and snug. Now you just put the bolts back in. Again, these don't have to be super tight. You know, just make them hand tight. They're not really holding anything structural or anything, so it should just be fine. Just tighten them with your hands, and you should be good to go. And that's it for that boot. Alright, now it's time to do the outer boot. And for this one, I'm going to have to flip the console on over. And there are a few screws down here. Take the retaining plate out. Just going to undo those. And old boot should just pop right out. Now on the NAs, the boot actually fits over the retaining ring. On the NBs, it fits on top, and then you tuck the edges over these little tabs. So you're just gonna pull it off the tabs. And there you go. Alright, so I've got the new boot on here, and you really just gotta stretch it over the tabs here, and then you're gonna install it back in the console. Squeeze it in there. It might be a little bit of a tighter fit, since the new one will likely fit a little bit tighter than the original boot did. I'm just gonna install the hardware back on there, and you don't want to screw these screws too tight, otherwise they may strip, or you could potentially crack the plastic parts of the console, and then you might need to find a new console. Alright, everything is in here nice and snug. Not too snug. That's looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna wipe this down, clean it up a little bit, and then we'll be ready to put it back in the car. Alright, so I got it nicely cleaned out. I'd say that looks a lot better than it did before. It's not totally perfect, but definitely a huge improvement. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the car. Alright, and the installation is just the reverse of everything you did. You have to get the console back in. Have to make sure these levers get through where they need to be. Also make sure to plug your window switch back in. Otherwise, of course, you won't have any window controls. This part will pop in. Make sure you can see all of your screw holes lining up. Everything looks good. Shifter knob back on. And when you do that, first you want to make sure that your shift pattern lines up where you want it, but don't tighten it too much, because you don't want to strip the threads. Once it feels like it's not going to go anywhere and everything lines up, you're good to go. Looks pretty good. I'll put all the screws back in. Alright, so those are nice and tight. Put the ashtray back in. And the last two screws. Again, not too tight, but tight enough. Snap the covers on there. Make sure everything looks like it's lining up. And that's it. Alright, so that was just a quick thing I needed to get done on this car. And there's not all that much else to do. A lot of bugs in here, wow. Before I get it ready to sell. And in my last video I did mention that I was looking at a 350Z. But you may have noticed I also put a note that said actually not. Since then, I have done a little bit more market research. I've done a lot of thinking about it, and I think I'm actually gonna make the leap and get a G37. I've always really liked the G37S sedan. It's got an even better engine, drivetrain, interior, everything than the G35s and the 350Zs. It's a little bit more modern, a little bit newer, more updated and all that. And I think it's just going to be worth it in the long run. Spend a little bit extra money and just get a much better car overall. It should be a lot of fun. But first of all, we'll have to move this car along, obviously. And then we'll have a new car to play with. This car has been a lot of fun. But, you know, maybe it's just not the right time to keep a Miata long term. But it has been a lot of fun in the last several months that I have owned it. Gotten to do some autocross with it. You know, a few canyon runs. Just had a lot of fun. And I've slowly improved a bunch of little things on the car. I put the new top on. That was a big deal. They got the new wheels and tires on there. That was also a big thing in terms of drivability. And everything else is pretty much just small cosmetic things. I'm hoping that the next car I can do all sorts of mods to, and maybe take some long road trips with friends and everything. And, you know, just something that I can keep longer. And I guess that's it for now. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, and I'm kidding. I'll see you next time.